say, Lord, I want to live completely Holy Spirit-led, Holy Spirit-fed. It's an advantage like nothing on this earth. You don't have to, though. Good luck with that. Good luck trying to stay sexually pure on your own. How's that working out? It got real quiet. Good luck!
He was one of the country's best-known pastors,
But it all came crashing down. Without a job and trying to repair his marriage,
Carl Lenz is working on damage control.
Carl Lenz' recent downfall has triggered a wave of scandals for the church Brian Houston created in Australia more than 30 years ago.
He was definitely valuable. More young adults started to be attracted to his presence at the church.
How you doing? Don't sit down. You're crazy. We just started.
Everything changed after that. When Carl came, it was definitely a different atmosphere, culture, community. The pastoral role definitely was a completely different vibe.
What you're doing tonight is saying, Jesus, I'm walking out of what was into what is about to be.
Hey, girl. Hi. I appreciate you. I'm glad I know you, and I just don't have a lot of words or energy or anything. I don't know which way is up right now. I can't sleep, struggling. But if I'm within 10 miles of you, I'm coming to see you.
A lot of time he will send me videos speaking to the camera, because if he will text me, I will not respond. So for him to create emotions, he will send a video so I can see his face.
Yeah.
It was started in May. It was a Friday. I was at the park by my house. I remember he was leaning on the bench, stretching. He was just looking at me. So we were like a really nice chat. He said to me, you're from the Middle East, the most beautiful women come from the Middle East. And then we kept walking, and he asked me a bunch of questions. I was like, oh, we just met, like, you know, you need to chill. We walked towards the end of the park, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go this way. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go that way. And he grabbed his phone and he said, he asked me to write my information, but I wrote it on his note section. Right. He messaged me. I said to him, are you married? And he said, yes. And I said, for how long? He said, for 17 years. And like, listen, at the end of the day, we all end up, he ended up coming to my house. Something in me told me, like, this is like such a huge and strong connection. We met on Friday. Saturday, I saw her briefly at the park, and then Sunday evening when he came to my house. That was the first time that we actually got to kiss.
Can you give us a timeline of how long you and Carl were together?
It was 5 months. So me and Carl were together for like 5 months. Throughout the months that we were seeing each other, it got to the point where I started to realize he does things that it's always convenient for him. He always gives a time frame when he can do things. I fell into a place where, like, I will wanted to hang out, you know, with him, and then he wouldn't be able to do that. And it's starting to occur to me that it's always his way or no way. It got to the point where I will send him novels of like, goodbye, I wish I never met you at the park. We used to argue a lot. And when I started to pull back and say, I don't want this anymore, leave me alone, he wanted to know that if you're walking away from him, he's not gonna let you walk away. He needs to be the first one.
Genuinely asking you, what do you want me to do? Because if it's easier for you just to move on and me not say, hey, how are you, or how's your day, or if I think about you, let you know, I won't do that.
But then he said something that intrigued me. He said, you know, at the end of the day, I go to my family and you go to nothing. And I was like, wow, that's a slap in the face. I started to realize there's things that people say that they feel they have power over you. It was the most toxic thing I ever had to deal with. It was really unhealthy. I got the message from him telling me that we can text, and they found out about everything from his computer at his office. And then he called me from the hallway where he was staying. He said, my wife just found out, and I cannot talk right now, I'll talk to you later. And he hung up on me. Then when he came with his Instagram post, then I was like, you need to call me. And then he was like, I cannot call you right now. Like, I have paparazzi outside, blah, blah, blah. I was like, wow, like, I give a about these people. The last time we spoke, we talked for an hour and a half, and he said he have to go and whatever, and he just told me, don't worry, nobody knows who you are, nobody knows about your identity. I paid a lot of money to bury your name.
The scandal came out in the open of what Carl did, and Brian was left with no choice but to fire him.
These decisions are based on what's good for the corporation. Looking at the income that they would lose, the revenue that they would lose by dismissing Carl Lentz, it had to be devastating. So to get to that decision, I imagine it was very tough in their conference room. But Carl Lentz committed adultery. Brian Houston, he doesn't want that to affect the empire, just as any corporation would protect themselves against the scandal. Put as much distance away from that guy as you can. That's where Hillsong meets Hollywood. I mean, if you look at any Hollywood scandal, it's identical. The publicists for each side start spinning. And Carl Lentz has his version. Brian Houston comes out with a whole different explanation of why he was basically fired.
There's a lot of things I miss about Carl. But having said that, there were leadership issues that I believe included lying, included what I would call narcissistic behavior.
If you look at Hillsong's posturing in the Carl Lentz scandal, you know, Brian Houston's up there with passion and conviction and making these statements like, yeah, we had to get rid of Carl because he was bad, and I questioned his morals and things like that. This is the devil calling the devil the devil. If we unravel or start to peel back layers of Brian Houston, he'd know better.
I'm Anna Crenshaw, and I attended Hillsong Church and College for 4.5 years. My parents are both pastors, so I grew up going to church every Sunday. We were involved as teenagers, and I loved it. The gathering was after church in an evening. It was just a few friends at Jason's townhouse. I was just invited because my friend was invited, and she was talking to one of the guys who was going to be there. Jason Mays works for Hillsong. His family's all really involved. So his dad's the head of HR for Hillsong. They've been there many years. His wife's family's also really involved. As the night went on, nobody was drinking excessively except for Jason. My friend and I, we were a part of the college which you're not allowed to drink during, so we didn't have any drinks. I noticed, like, he is drinking a lot. At one point he said, so are you girls sleeping over tonight? And I was like, that is such a weird question. Like, that's very not appropriate. Then at one point he moved next to me, and that's when, like, he put his hand on my thigh. I just froze. Luckily, one of his friends came over, and that's when I think he saw Jason's hand. And so as soon as he saw it, he said, it's time to take the girls home. So I stood up, and then that's when Jason grabbed me. And he put his hands, like, all around my crotch, my butt, in between my legs. He lifted up my shirt a bit and started kissing my stomach, and I'm trying to pull away from him, but, you know, he's latched on. And then I managed to get away, and as soon as we got in the car, my friend and I sat in the back seat, and the guy who was driving us home, he was like, I'm so sorry, that's not like him, please don't tell anyone. And then the whole rest of the car ride was just silent. At this point, Jason was still singing on Sunday, he was still working at church. Nothing had happened for him except for maybe one meeting where they asked him about what happened.
When I got involved, then they began to take it seriously. She made a full report in December of 2018, and they didn't act until I got involved months later in April of 2019. To correct inaccurate reporting and misrepresentation of the facts, it's important to clarify the timeline of this incident and some of the surrounding details. They know that they were sitting on it, hoping that the problem would just go away, minimizing the problem, continuing to question her, continuing to make her tell her story over and over again. She did not get care, she got handled.
Everyone started coming at once. It was just kind of like a tsunami of people from across America DMing and emailing and telling me about a variety of bad Hillsong experiences. I started realizing just how bad the money abuse was. These debit cards that are loaded directly with tithe money. They were used on clothes, weekly manicures, fancy restaurant meals, a designer purse, four-wheel ATVs that they were driving around Williamsburg, which, that's so ridiculous. Sneakers, luxury presents, a $700 brand new iPhone. This is fraudulent because tithe money is intended to make a church better.
The firing of Lentz in New York opened the floodgates for Hillsong. A letter to New York leadership in 2018 surfaced alleging abusive behavior by church leaders. In the months that followed, a senior staffer in New Jersey resigned over what a church spokesperson said was an inappropriate message on social media. Hillsong announced its pastors in Dallas resigned. The church there closed.
One of the things that I've noticed about people who lead cultic groups, there's always a finger pointed outward. There's always an excuse because they don't want anyone to hold a mirror up to something that they did wrong. So there's almost every method of manipulation being used right in front of you.
In response to the Christian Post article, Brian Houston made a tweet in which he made reference to Anna's previous experience of sexual assault as a 12 or 13-year-old. He was trying to say in the tweet that such things can happen anywhere, even in her father's church. And people around the world who saw that tweet recognized that it was atrocious to refer to a previous victimization as a way of diminishing the impact of her current situation. And he quickly took it down. He actually sent me an apology. I told him in my response to his text that I have a hard time accepting his apology as serious when the only thing he apologized is for a tweet that went public that he can't deny responsibility for, and yet at the same time say that there are disputed facts.
I think it completely was an act of victim shaming because it basically just made it seem like, oh, well, she's had this happen before, so it could just make people think something of me rather than looking at how they've handled a situation.
Most of us, it was the system and the system that he was, perpetuating. So like Brian Houston will point the finger at Carl Lentz. Carl Lentz will probably point it back at Brian Houston. And I'm like pointing it at both of them.
It's all about the brand. It's his baby. He's built it up from 45 people in a school hall in Western Sydney. He's got, churches in 30 countries and 150,000 people a week. And he will protect the brand at all costs.
To reach and influence the world.